So the dust has officially settled on Joel Embiid missing the season opener and set to be out for a couple more games beyond this, but this has not stopped Embiid from ruffling a couple feathers of some former NBA stars, with Kevin Garnett being the latest to join the conversation. So I want to break down what a couple of these notable faces of the growing media are saying about the Sixers superstar and why I just think this is much to do about nothing. So let's jump right into the comments here. I'm going to start off with our very own Charles Barkley, who of course spent plenty of time here in Philadelphia and is one of the faces of Inside the NBA. And this article from writes that NBA legends pick 76ers star apart for not playing back-to-backs. Quote, "It doesn't make sense." Now to get into Chuck's official quotes here, he says, quote, "You're one of the 3, 4, 5 best players in the world. You cannot say, as a leader of the team, I'm not going to play certain games," Barkley said. Quote, "I thought this was a bad message. I was very disappointed in Joel Embiid." And while I don't necessarily agree with that or disagree with that principle there, I understand what Charles is saying. Where they lost me is he hands the rock over to Shaq to go talk about the conversation. And Shaq points out how Joel Embiid is just a pick and pop player who doesn't play in the post, doesn't play physicality, doesn't get double teamed. And that's where you completely lost me. And because I'm a petty guy myself and had to pull this up, did want to acknowledge just how often Joel Embiid is double teamed and how efficient that is. Shout out to NBA University, who is an awesome Twitter follow here. This coming from last season that says double teamed on the highest percentage of their possessions and team points per possession when double teamed, this being from last year. Julius Randle, the only surprising name on there, but most of the faces that I think we would expect. Giannis leading the pack. 36.3% of touches that he is double teamed and still producing 1.28 points per possession in those opportunities. Joel Embiid right there at number 2. 35.8% of touches he is double teamed and producing a 1.21 points per possession there. A very efficient figure there. I love that number there. Anything over 1 you're really happy with. Anything over 1.2 is incredibly good in a point by possession basis. Now the surprise name Julius Randle doubled on 34% of touches, 1.22 points per possession there. Very impressive stuff. Luka right behind at 33.5% of the possessions, producing 1.16 points there. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander at 33.4% of possessions that he is double teamed while still producing at a 1.15 point per possession basis. These are superstars. This is what the job calls for, and this is what these guys do, and that is what Joel Embiid does there. But it was not just Charles Barkley and Shaq that were taking their shots on Inside the NBA, as Kevin Garnett also rose to the conversation and had his thoughts here. So I do want to dive into a couple of these quotes here, and I'm going to start out with this here that it says, "But even Garnett is growing tired of the younger generation." On the latest, quote, "The Ticket and the Truth podcast, Garnett went nuclear on Joel Embiid for refusing to play back-to-back games for the remainder of his career. Quote, "It's effing amazing that he can get this off," Garnett said of Embiid. "Back-to-backs are a part of the blank of the season. That's like 15 games a year, so automatically you're not playing 15 games." And he continues on to say, "In recent years, LeBron James and others have urged the NBA to reduce the regular season to 66 games. However, Garnett stressed that the league must not give in to the players' demands, saying, quote, 82 games, man. That's what the blanking job calls for," Garnett said. "Man, I don't want to hear this blank. I don't want to hear none of this blank. Blank can sit out of back-to-backs. Hey, listen, we done that with that comparison of eras, blank. We're going to respect this era, what it does, and that's it. But don't compare nobody because you can't," with him kind of being the old man yelling from the clouds about how soft this generation is. But to give him the full effect, we'll give the last part of his quote here, which he continues on. The article stating that the legend further ripped into the league for their lack of accountability and allowing players to have their say over scheduling. Quote, "Ain't nobody holding anyone accountable," Garnett lamented. "So not only are they not going to practice, they're going to sit out games. To prevent the rampant practice of, quote, load management, the NBA has instigated a 65-game rule which calls for players to be disqualified from accolades and other awards if they fail to meet the threshold. The rule has severe contractual ramifications, as certain players don't receive bonuses by not making the All-NBA and All-Defensive team. Yet, Embiid and several others have spoken openly about taking themselves out of the race for awards just to be healthy for the playoffs. Last season, the Sixers center was disqualified for the MVP race due to his failure to meet the 65-game criteria." Now, my first part of this, just to direct Kevin Garnett head on here. as I do think Garnett's a guy who, unfortunately, is making his money getting his clicks by having these reactionary takes. And I don't think this is anything in his heart of heart that he believes. I think this is something that he said to make headlines, and that is that. And for what it's worth, for Mr. Staying on your high horse right there, Kevin Garnett played all 82 games in 4 out of the 14 seasons he was in the NBA. He also played less than 50 games in 4 out of the 14 games that he was in the NBA. And I understand that injuries happen, man. That's kind of my point here, is that's the whole reason that we're having this entire conversation. It shouldn't be looked at as soft as you get hurt, and it shouldn't be mocked that Joel Embiid is doing his best to get through this season fully healthy. And that is the ultimate Joel Embiid situation, is you will consistently find this guy in lose-lose spots. For this specific situation here, if Joel Embiid plays the entire season, then shows up and is not himself in the playoffs, all that's going to be critiqued is why wasn't there a clear plan in place to load management, make sure he was ready for his biggest moment when the lights were the brightest. If he does go through this plan, let's say he load manages the entire season, that they're very calculated in the games that he plays and the games that he doesn't, they get to the playoffs and they still come up short. The number one thing that's going to be brought up, why wasn't there more time spent hammering out the chemistry with this roster? Why wasn't Joel Embiid in prime game shape? Are we sure he could have gotten in better shape if he didn't play more games here? There's no possible way to satisfy everyone. And for Joel Embiid specifically, I do want to make this crystal clear that he is a different case than just about any other player in the league really at all right now. This is not something where, he's battling through a nagging injury that he's hoping to overcome. This is not a situation in which he has a body that is capable of taking an 82-game sample size on a wear and tear grind. Joel Embiid is a special talent who, unfortunately, body continually fails him. Now, I continue to ride with him because of the standpoint that not Andre Drummond, but Joel Embiid himself is a level of talent that you cannot replace. A dude that just last season was averaging 34.7 points per game, 11 rebounds, 5.6 assists, 1.7 blocks, 1.2 steals, shot a ridiculous 52.9% from the floor, 38.8% from three, and by the way, 57.1% on corner threes there. That is not normal. There was a legitimate argument for being that being the best statistical season ever to occur in NBA history if he had lasted the entire season. Now, obviously, he did get hurt, only lasted 39 games, and didn't look like himself in the playoffs. And that's the exact reason we're back on having this conversation, because it's not okay for that to be the conversation year in, year out. Joel Embiid should not be looked at as a what if at the conclusion of his career. He should be doing everything possible to give this guy the best chance to get that final accolade, that NBA championship, and provide this Sixers team with that. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. In an ideal world, can you just play Joel Embiid every night and still be ready for the playoffs? For sure. But we don't live in that world. We don't live in a perfect world right here. So the Sixers have to do this risk management assessment. So while I understand the frustrations, Kevin Garnett, that you were frustrated, you weren't able to do that back in your day. You also have a little bit healthier body than Joel Embiid. This has been something that he's dealt with year in and year out throughout his career. Let's not forget that when he first came to the Sixers, let's even rewind further than that, leading up to the draft, that if Joel Embiid does not have a broken foot leading up to the draft, he's the number one overall pick, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Now, he did break his foot before the draft, and that scared teams off. He dropped to third in the draft. That it went Andrew Wiggins, it went Jabari Parker, and then it went Joel Embiid to 3, and thank God that it did. And then flash forward to the first 2 seasons of his career, where he not only missed that first season with the broken foot, but suffered a setback with that issue where he held out the first 2 seasons. And then flash forward ahead, look what we've dealt with to this point, that he's torn his meniscus. He's had issues in both knees. He's had surgeries on just about every part of his body to this point. But the bottom line being, he's still this special talent. The Sixers have committed all this money to him. This team is constructed about him. So why would you go out of your way to make sure he plays back-to-backs, that he's on the floor on a night-to-night basis, if the big picture is still sitting at the end? Guess what? If Joel Embiid plays back-to-backs or he doesn't, the playoffs are still coming. The bottom line is getting this guy a chance to be his dominant self when the moments matter most, and we've yet to live through that opportunity with Joel Embiid. So to Kevin Garnett, I understand your frustrations. You're allowed to yell at the clouds. You're allowed to make headlines, fall in this Gilbert Arenas type lane where you're just throwing stuff at the wall and hope that it sticks. But this isn't quite the direction that you want to go. Joel Embiid is not the guy you want to go out for this take. There's guys that you can call soft for their load management. Joel Embiid is a guy whose body continually fails him, and he's doing his best to adjust that overall. So to Kevin Garnett, just relax a little bit, man. Go worry about your Boston Celtics and enjoy the moment, the defending champs, all that. Let Joel Embiid trust his own process and pave his own path to what his championship aspirations could be. And by the way, if Joel wins one, they're looking eye to eye for how many championship rings they each got in their pocket right now. And I think that this is the best route to making that comparison happen. So we will see what happens from there, but I am getting sick of the constant outside noise, having an opinion on Joel Embiid's body in a way that only Joel truly knows how he feels at this point of time. I don't think a 100% version of Joel Embiid exists at this point in time, and that's the frustrating reality. So we got to manage that as best we can, and hopefully that can last throughout the entirety of the season. So let me know what you guys think in the comments, but I am sick of the Kevin Garnett and constant player buzz and how much of a talking point the Joel Embiid load management has become. But let me know if you guys are on the same page as me. Make sure you're smashing that subscribe button if you have not already, dropping a like on this video, and I will talk to you next time right here on Sixers Digest. Peace.